Hi, Armand, back to talk to you this time about Venus retrograde in 2015. Before we go any further, you should go to integralastrology.net where you can, let's say, for example, sign up for the newsletter, read the monthly forecast. You might get a consultation special with Venus retrograde. I'm just saying, I'm not advertising, that wouldn't be proper. Anyway, go to integralastrology.net, come back here, YouTube will still be here. Venus retrograde. Okay, Venus retrograde gets a lot of attention. People are excited about Venus retrograde. It's, one of those retrogrades that people like to pay attention to. The book on Venus retrograde is that old lovers come back and things like that happen. And sometimes that does happen, although often more for like kind of resolving things rather than, let's say, starting up again and having a grand romance. Sometimes though, don't let me discourage you. But often it's sort of a matter of going back and kind of redoing things and saying, there's a reason why X's are X's. Still, I know sometimes you don't have that much going on at the moment, and you start to think about the list of people that were, and maybe somebody. So it could work out that way. That's just one facet of Venus retrograde, however. The next thing that happens with Venus retrograde is that it's not a great time to get things appraised. It's not a great time to set the value of things. Facebook famously launched on a Venus retrograde station, and, the stock plummeted right away. It's not a very good time to get a good value on something, so appraisals are better off left until after the retrograde. It's not a bad time to have something reappraised, however. You know how it is with retrogrades. Reappraisal. Let's see. Artistic stuff. Sometimes artistic stuff, you wind up kind of, finishing up projects rather than starting something new with Venus retrograde. So if you have an artistic side to you, if you're an artist, a musician, creator, continuing working on things is fine, but not necessarily really starting something new. But this Venus retrograde, that's all Venus retrograde, sort of out of the box Venus retrograde. Let's talk about Venus retrograde in the summer of 2015, because it's really kind of significant. Venus goes retrograde on July 25th and goes direct again on September 6th. Now, when Venus stations to retrograde, she has just got her toes into Virgo. She doesn't get past 0 degrees Virgo. So she just gets into Virgo and then retrogrades back into Leo. Now, that means that there's going to be dragging some Virgoan sensibilities into Leo. Now, if you've been paying attention at all, you will have noticed that there's big blazing show up in the western sky in the evenings, and that is the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, because Jupiter has been in Leo for the past year. Now, Jupiter in Leo, kind of pumps things up a little bit. A little bit of, I don't want to say extravagance, but a little extravagance. And kind of makes things big, dramatic. Let's do it larger. And that Venus conjunction with Jupiter kind of pushed that even further. Beautiful. Let's go for it. Order it. Go ahead. Whether it's something you're buying online, or whether it's the more expensive bottle of wine at the restaurant, whether it's the extra dessert, get it. Let's go for it. We'll figure out how to pay for it and stuff like that tomorrow. Well, this Venus retrograde is very likely to be tomorrow. It is very likely to be the time when we really start thinking about where we're spending our resources, what we value, what we're really paying attention to. Venus will go into Virgo, and on the way there, she's going to square Saturn in Scorpio. Now, Saturn in Scorpio has got kind of, let's say, how are we paying for this kind of vibe? So after meeting with Jupiter, she goes forward, squares Saturn. Saturn says, I don't know who's paying for all of this. Venus gets into Virgo, comes back, aspects Saturn again, aspects Jupiter again, meets up with Jupiter again, and then when she goes forward, she's going to go forward and again meet with Saturn. She's going to square Saturn again, but this time when she's in Virgo, and Saturn has moved into Sagittarius, and she's going to meet up with Jupiter again in late October. She is going to meet with Jupiter. Well, she has to meet with Jupiter again, because going back and forth. But this time in the middle of Virgo. So what's happening here is that the Leonine sense of bigger and better, or bigger is better, is met with the Virgoan sense that maybe we ought to be a little careful. Maybe we ought to consolidate a little bit. We're going to start hearing words like sustainability. We're going to start hearing words that will remind us that sometimes less is more. You know, Venus and Jupiter in Leo, more is more. But in Virgo, maybe less is more. Responsibility, sustainability. These are sort of the watchwords for really the coming year while Jupiter is in Virgo. And so Venus retrograde kind of kicks off that time. We're going to sort of see a shift in the collective mindset. I don't really think this would be great for Donald Trump, who's a Leo. Things that are extra built up, things that are over the top, are going to kind of be consolidated. The air comes out a little bit. It's not that we're gonna, it's not that we're gonna give up on extravagance and elegance. I'm a Leo, don't worry, we got this. But it's like we're probably gonna sort of rethink our values about it. It's gonna be a little bit more Birkenstock and a little less Jimmy Choo. You know what I'm saying? There's a little more conservative vibe to this. So how do you handle this Venus this Venus retrograde through Leo? Well, one thing to do is to consider what it is you value. Take some time to really consider what it is you value. Whether it's relationship, whether it's physical possessions, whether it is what you do to entertain yourself and go have fun. What is it that you really value? How big does it have to be to have value? And remember, the collective mindset is liable to be shifting fairly significantly so that we start to see a more toned down, sort of little bit, not quite drab, but not quite sparkly approach to things that seems to be a little bit more appealing. Going green, the environmentally sound solution to things, not wasting, reduce, reuse, recycle. We're kind of getting into that mindset. It is, it's part of a deeper change that's happening for sure, but it's also being met with a sort of stylistic change. It's going to sort of be hip to be green and cool about things. Some considerations for the next 40 days. You may find that you're giving up some stuff, not necessarily, on your own personal volition. But that's the 40 days thing. That's the 40 days of Lent. That's the 40 days of the flood, right? It's the 40 days where you have to kind of back off from things. Don't go too overboard and back off from too much, but it's not a bad time to consider a diet. It's not a bad time to consider an exercise program. It's not a bad time to get a little bit more fiscally responsible. Give it a shot. It could be fun.